Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, Saka here, and welcome back to D&D 5e for Absolute Beginners. And today, we are going to build our very own level 1 character from scratch. So, we looked at all of the different classes. We looked at all of the different races. We didn't look at all the different backgrounds, but, we'll just roll and see what we get. My approach to the backgrounds is there's 13 of them, and to show you that we can get a truly random character and not really have to worry about it, I will roll a dice for the background features alphabetically, I'll roll a dice for the races alphabetically, and I'll roll a dice for the classes alphabetically. Just, roll a d20 and see what number it lands on, and whichever number it lands on that corresponds with the alphabetical order, we will make that character. We'll also do the basic stat rolls with our 4d6 here, choose some of our spells, our weapons, our starting loadout, and hopefully by the end of this tutorial you will be able to make any character from the player's handbook. So some people start with a race. They have an idea that I want to be an elf, I want to be a dragonborn. Some people start with a class. I want to be the sneaky rogue. I choose to get the background first. And that's because when you think about building a character, your character that you make, even though they're level 1, they're not a newborn. They have had previous life experience before becoming an adventurer, and that came before their trade. Perhaps they learned their class from their trade. So I like to think about what background feature I would want first. Because we're doing this randomly, we might get a sailor who is a wizard, who is a half-orc, who knows? But the process for building the characters is going to be the same across the board. You essentially need a background, you need a race, and you need a class. So, I have a list of all the backgrounds here alphabetically. We are going to roll a d20 and see what comes up. All right, we got the d20 in my hand with the big roll. There it goes. It lands on a 9. So the 9th background is the Outlander. Now, this particular table here on Tabletop Simulator does have these cool features and race features, class features, all that good stuff. So in the Outlander, what do we get? We pull those out and we get the card. So we have these features here. We are a wanderer, an excellent memory for maps and geography. We can always recall the general layout of terrain, settlements, and other features around you. In addition, you can find food and fresh water for yourself and up to 5 other people each day, provided the land offers berries, small game, water, and so forth. So that is what we get for being an Outlander as far as a skill is concerned. But just like the races and classes, we get some proficiencies with that as well. So one thing I like to do is write down everything that a particular background gives me so I don't double dip. For example, because I'm an Outlander, I am already proficient in athletics and survival, and I'll go ahead and mark those down on my character sheet here, survival. So because they are marked, I know that even if my race or my class is proficient in athletics or survival, I do not have to waste one of those choices on those because the Outlander does give it to me. And we'll keep in mind one language. So if we are an elf, let's say, we will know Common, Elven, so I won't waste my one language on learning Elven if we become an elf and are fluent anyway, so we'll keep that one language in mind. We also come with a staff, an animal trap, an animal trophy, traveling clothes, and 10 gold pieces to start out with. So that is all set for the Outlander. So that's it for the essential perks and the gameplay features of the Outlander. Essentially now we get to do some lore building to see what kind of Outlander we were. And there are some tables in the player's handbook if you want to go for some randomness, which we're all about random in this character build. So we're gonna roll this D10. Right here, give that D10 a shake, off we go. It lands on a 4, and according to the player handbook, the type of Outlander we are is a guide. So once upon a time, we were a guide. So in the background, we can actually put Outlander Guide, or Outlander G, or maybe Olander. On an actual character sheet, you have plenty of room. Olander Guide, sure. Outlander Guide. Then also there are the personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. The first chart for our personality trait is a D8 random roll, so let's go ahead and give that a roll. Comes up on an 8, and that is, I was in fact raised by wolves, and that is legit in the player handbook. Already we have a pretty awesome character, and we don't even know what race or class they are, but the fact that we were raised by wolves, that is pretty cool. That is the 8 on the Outlander. The other 3, the ideals, the bonds, and the flaws, are all D6 rolls. So let's go ahead and grab us a D6, go ahead and give those a roll, and see what our ideal, bond, and flaw is. Let's give that a roll for our ideal. That is a 4, and that is the ideal of might. The strongest are meant to rule. And there's a little parenthesis next to that that says that might be an evil alignment, but it's sort of lining up. We were raised by wolves. We come from a class or a background where the alpha makes the calls and looks over everyone, and the alpha is the strongest wolf in the pack. So already we're coming up with an idea of how we were raised. Let's go to our bond, another D6. That roll of a 6 is, it is my duty to provide children to sustain my tribe. Once again, a very alpha mentality. And one more roll of the D6 to find out our flaw. What makes our character uniquely flawed? And that is a 4, and that 4 is I am slow to trust other races, tribes, and societies. So this is the character that is truly the lone wolf. Raised by wolves, believes in the alpha, provides children, and slow to trust every other race, tribe, and society. Not a very charismatic character from what I'm feeling, so if I wanted to continue to roleplay this out, I'm not going to put a high number in charisma, and that would be detrimental to someone like the Warlock, which that is their spell casting modifier. Everything is based on their charisma score. So if we are slow to trust, maybe we don't have an outward charisma, but everyone that runs in our pack absolutely loves us. That would make sense in a lore base. But there we go. That is our background. We are an Outlander guide raised by wolves and kind of a bit of an alpha. So next up, let's choose a race, shall we? I'll get rid of these. Whoops. I'll get rid of these Outlander features, and we will roll another D20 and see what race we are. All right, since there are 9 races, a 10-sided dice would probably do it. A 0, we will roll again, but there we go. There goes the D10, comes up on a 9, and that race is the Tiefling. So we have a Tiefling who is raised by wolves. Let's go ahead and pull out all the racial features of the Tiefling here. That is the Tiefling feature right there. And then we just pull that, we just pull that card out. Looks like we have 3 Tiefling features, and these were covered in my race videos here. First of all, we have dark vision. We can see in dark and dim light for 60 feet. We have resistance to fire damage, and we have the infernal legacy, and that's the thaumaturgy cantrip. That is the cantrip that allows flames to burn brighter, to make sounds much louder than they appear, to just basically intimidate the crap out of people. So right now, okay, we're getting an image in our head of a lone wolf who is a Tiefling, not quick to trust people and very intimidating. If we were to become a barbarian or something of that nature, that'd be pretty cool. But once again, it's going to come down to that D10 roll because we're just randoming this up. So let's go ahead and roll this D10 and see what class we are. All right, there are actually 12 classes in the player's handbook, so I grabbed a D12. Let's go ahead and give this D12 a nice big roll here, and it comes up on a 6. The 6th, alphabetically, is the Monk. Interesting indeed. So the Monk is right here. We have 10 class cards for the Monk. These fighting styles right here will come later, the 4 elements, the open hand, and the shadow. We also get these cards here. So as we saw, there are some monk features that separate them. Once we reach 18th level, we can spend 4 key points to become invisible for a minute. Okay, that's pretty cool. We have the Tongue of Sun and Moon. There is our bonuses from level 13 to 20. We also have our bonuses from level 5 to 10. We also have our martial arts. That is our base attack style. We also have our monk bonuses level 1 to 4, so that is our unarmored defense. We'll be sure to factor that in for our armor class. We also have the stunning strike at 5th level, and we also have the key points at 2nd level. So right off the bat, we're not going to be harnessing key or, using up key points to do extra attacks, but those are all of our monk features. We can keep those off to the side. And now the most important part is rolling up our stats here and assigning them correctly. So let's grab these 4d4s, and we just take the highest 3 numbers. We'll do 1, and then luckily in Tabletop Simulator, when we hover over it, we can see what all the dice rolled. So that is an 11 for the first number, and I'm going to go ahead and roll these dice 6 times, and I'll have another note card here with all of my rolls on it, so I will be right back. We have our rolls here, and before we assign them, the 11, the 13, the 16, the 15, the 17 is baller, and another 11. The tiefling themselves get a +1 to intelligence and a +2 to charisma. So, based off of what we want our monk to do, that will help benefit these rolls. Now, the modifiers go up on the even number. So this +1 can turn an 11 into a 12 and get that, +2, which would be pretty cool. This +2 can boost, say, this 16 up to an 18 and get it up to the +4. So, something to think about as we assign those scores, but definitely don't forget that your race does come with some bonuses. So before you assign your rolls, look what extra points that you have. And as you can see, we know Common and Infernal plus another language. So we know 3 languages right off the bat, thanks to our Outlander guide. So let's go ahead and assign these numbers for our monk. All right, according to the player's handbook, Dex should be our highest number, followed by Wisdom. So 17 in the Dex, boom, 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 and then the Wisdom was a 16, I believe, 17 and 16. Yes, indeed. So let's get the 17 and the 16 off of here so we don't reuse them. And then I'm thinking next highest for Constitution, because, hit points are a thing. So let's put a 15 there in Constitution. And then the rest are kind of just there. An 11, a 13, and an 11. Let's make the 13 a Strength. And then that will put our Intelligence at 11 and our Charisma at 11. And that is before we add our Intelligence and Charisma scores there. So we can delete our rolls here. We'll add 1 to our Intelligence, boosting that up to 12. That is the next number, outstanding. And then 2 on Charisma will boost that up to 13. So right off the bat, we've got a 13, 17, 15, 12, 16, 13, and it's time to assign the modifier points based on these numbers. So using page 13 of our player's handbook, we can see that the 13s give us 1, the 12s give us 1 as well, the 15 gives us 2, the 16 and 17 give us +3. Now this character sheet is a little bit better organized than the stock because all of the things that pertain to that skill is right next to it. However, on your character sheet, it will have in parentheses STR or DEX or whatever. So for us, we will add +1 to these two because our strength modifier is 1. If you have proficiency, that is your proficiency bonus here, so we'll add another 2. So our athletics is actually a +3. For our dex, everything will be +3. So that is your saving throws of dex, your acrobatics, your sleight of hand, and stealth is modified by this modifier here. Constitution is easy. It's just that saving throw there. We have +1 to all of these skills. The intelligence saving throw, arcana, history, investigation, nature, and religion. We have a +3 to everything in wisdom. So that is our wisdom saving throw, animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, and survival. And then because our Outlander gives us proficiency bonus, we add another 2 to survival to make that a +5. And then charisma saving throw, deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion are all +1. And we haven't even gotten to the things that make the, that the monk has. So hang on to your butts. We are going to start building up this monk. So the monk starts out with a 1d8 plus your constitution modifier. So that will start us out with 10 wonderful hit points at level 1. So your max will stay up here, and as you take damage, you will subtract them from the hit points here, or you can just write down your hit points and refresh them on a rest. To get rid of our tiefling bonuses, we already assigned the skill point extras. Let's just do common, infernal, and then our one language here from our Outlander stuff. I chose Dwarven, so we're going to start getting these things lined out so we don't miss anything. We are also proficient, yes, in athletics and survival, so those are good to go. We are proficient in one instrument, so that will be down here. So we will say instrument, and I believe we get to choose that instrument. And then in our equipment and character notes over here, that's part of our equipment, things that we're carrying. I don't know if this staff can actually work as a weapon, but we do have our staff. We have our animal trap, which might come in handy for goblin or something like that. We have an animal trap, an animal trophy. From our background there, we also have traveling clothes, which works because the monk doesn't actually wear any armor. So our traveling clothes are what we're going to be fighting in, which is kind of interesting. And then over here on your character sheet will be your gold list. And we start out with 10 gold pieces there. So that is everything to do with our background sorted. That's everything to do with our race sorted. And now we're just focusing on the class. We don't have any armor proficiencies, but we do have simple weapons proficiency. And we have a short sword proficiency. So not bad. I don't know if we're actually going to use a short sword, as we are a hand to fist type character, but we'll see how that comes into play. We're also, as a monk, proficient in either Artisans Tools or an instrument. And this is one of those double dipping things. If you pick the monk first and you said, I want an instrument, and then you chose the Outlander class, you've essentially wasted a proficiency in Artisans Tools. So on page 154, we have a list of all the different Artisans Tools there are, and I'll just go through them here. Alchemist, brewer, calligrapher, carpenter, cartographer, cobbler, cook, glass blower, jeweler, leather worker, mason, painter, potter, smith, tinker, weaver, and wood carver. Now, the most expensive out of all of those is the alchemist supplies. So if we chose proficiency in alchemist tools, we might be able to use, like, say, a mortar and pestle and be able to make our own healing potions. However, just because we're proficient in it doesn't mean that we own it. So a little bit of the cheaper ones that might be worthwhile might be, let's say, a weaver or something like that if our clothes get ripped or torn, perhaps. I'll go through these and have a short think and let you know what I choose. I went ahead and chose cooking utensils. What that means is when we get some cooking utensils, pots, pans, knives, forks, all that good stuff, we can add our proficiency bonus of 2 on the roll to see if we cook an exquisite meal. That would be pretty handy, considering how we're an Outlander and we can forage for food. If we got some cooking materials, we can also cook up that stuff. So not only are we finding food, but we are preparing it in the woods very well, and that seems to coalesce with what I'm going for. With the monk, we also have the strength and dexterity saving throw, so we can add our proficiency bonus to that, meaning a 3 in both of our athletics, and taking our dexterity up to 5 for a dexterity saving throw. So we're getting pretty nimble on our feet. We can also choose 2 more skill proficiencies between acrobatics, athletics, history, insight, religion, and stealth. We already have athletics picked out. I kind of want to do stealth. So we will take the stealth proficiency, add our proficiency bonus of 2 to make our stealth a +5, and let's say insights. If we were to really dig down and see if people are lying to us or if we can tell what a person is all about. So we made that proficiency, added our proficiency bonus, and take a look at how many skills we're proficient in. Survival, insight, stealth, the dexterity saving throw, athletics, and the strength saving throw. All good things. So for our first equipment choice, we could pick a short sword or any simple weapon. I like the short sword. It is a finesse weapon, meaning it takes dexterity to use or strength, but because our dexterity modifier is higher, we're definitely taking dexterity for both the attack and damage rolls. As we can see, the short sword, the attack bonus would be our dexterity modifier plus proficiency bonus. So the 3 + 2 is a short sword +5. The damage here is a 1d6 piercing damage, and we add 3 due to our dexterity bonus as well. I'm just going to put P there for piercing damage so we know. So essentially, if an enemy attacks us and we have our short sword in hand, to see if we would hit their armor class, we would roll our d20, which we rolled a 5, and we would add 5. If 10 is their armor class, we hit them. If their armor class is above 10, we miss. But let's just say we roll an 11, and then we add 5 to get a 16, and say their armor class is 13. We hit, we roll our 1d6, and we add 3. So we roll our 6-sided dice here. We get 2 + 3 = 5 damage with that short sword. So we will be rocking the short sword as a monk. Alright, we could also choose between the Dungeoneering pack and the Explorers pack, and on page 151 of your player's handbook, you get to see what each pack includes, but the Dungeoneering pack includes a backpack, crowbar, a hammer, 10 pitons, 10 torches, a tinderbox, 10 rations, water skin, and a 50-foot hempen rope. And the last thing we could add for our monk is the dart, and our basic loadout comes with 10 darts, and as you can see, the attack bonus is the same as it is a finesse weapon, and we have proficiency in simple weapons as well. That counts, but it is finesse, so it uses that dexterity skill. And you can see it's the +5, and it does 1d4 + 3 piercing, but the benefit of the dart over the short sword is it has range. So if they're within 20 feet, that is a full attack. If they're between 20 and 60 feet, we'll be at a disadvantage, which means we roll the d20 twice. So the first roll is an 18, and boy, that'd be nice if we could keep that. 17. So we would take the 17 + 5 to see if we hit, and then we would roll the 1d4 damage, which looks like this little pyramid here, and then add our +3, that is a 1 + 3 for 4 damage, but we didn't get caught up in the thick of it. I think you can recover these after the battle. It's probably up to your dungeon master, but we've got 10 of them, and you will mark them down as you go, or some DMs will say, hey, if you got a dart, you have infinite darts. We're not going to worry about that minutia. So that varies from game to game. It's up to you, but the monk starts with 10 of these suckers. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the martial arts feature here. So remember these as we play. We use our dex instead of strength for the attack and damage rolls of our unarmed strikes and monk weapons. Usually an unarmed strike is based on your strength. If you were a fighter and you just tried to punch someone in the face, that would be your strength bonus. But the monk is dexterity. You roll a d4 in place of the normal damage of your unarmed strike or monk weapon. And that comes into play. You're thinking, wait, we've got a short sword that does 1d6 + 3. Why would we use a 1d4? That comes down here. When we use the attack action with the unarmed strike or a monk weapon, and the short sword is a monk weapon, so we do our 1d6 + 3. As a bonus action, if we have not used our bonus action, we make another unarmed strike. So we roll that d20, and that is an 8, and then we add our dexterity modifier here for a 13 to see if we make the unarmed strike, and if we do, we also use the 1d4 for additional damage. So there's bam, 4 + dex, that's 7. extra damage on a backhand after a sword strike. So the monk isn't just a slash and go, they're a pop pop in close range. The next thing we need to do is figure out our armor class. How hard are we to hit as a monk? And right here, beginning at first level while you're wearing no armor and not wearing a shield as we are not, your AC is 10 plus Dex mod plus Wiz mod, and you can see 3 plus 3 is 6. Our armor class is actually 16. So an enemy would have to roll a 16 or higher in order to even hit us. So even though we're unarmored, we might actually be harder to hit than a fighter is. Our initiative is +3 based on our 3 dexterity skill. So we'll roll the d20 whenever combat starts. We roll this, add 3, so that is a 14 plus 3 for a 17. If the creatures rolled less than a 17 on their initiative, we would go first. The monk is usually pretty good at going early in the round, of course, unless you roll that wicked 1 and our initiative is only 4. We just didn't get the good jump. But a +3 initiative, and the initiative score, no matter your class, is based on your dexterity mod. Your speed is based on your race, and the tiefling has a speed of 30 feet. To get your passive skills, you add 10 plus your modifier of whatever this is. So for us, it's perception. As you can see, I'm getting ahead of myself. As you can see, our perception modifier is 3. So 10 plus 3 is 13, meaning that our monk is constantly looking around with a roll of 13 on a perception check. So, you know, if this wisdom is 15 or, 16 passive, you'll catch a lot of details without actually looking for it. If your wisdom is lower, like a -2 or something like that, and your passive perception is 8, you might miss a lot of stuff unless you are actively looking. So you walk into a room, the DM might ask you what your passive perception score is. And I would say 13. And then that would be as if I had rolled a 13 perception right then and there. Of course, that doesn't cover the 20 perception, like getting into the finer details of the room, but this helps people not sneak up on you and things like that if you're always paying attention. So that is the passive section. So covering the other parts of the character sheet, your character name, obviously, what do you call yourself? The player is your name. Alignment is on the alignment chart from lawful good all the way to chaotic evil. How do you see yourself? Experience points, obviously how many experience points you have. Some DMs do a milestone leveling system where you don't keep track of experience points, but at certain parts of your story, the DM says, and now you level up. So if you are more used to a video game style approach where you're going for a certain threshold of experience points for that next level, keep track of your experience points. Your DM will let you know. Temporary hit points are given by different spells and different effects. They will be taken from you first. So if you have 5 temporary hit points and we were hit, those would drop to 0 before we start losing our actual hit points. So, you will be... your DM will tell you you gain 5 temporary hit points or that. Your death saves. So if you reach 0 hit points and you have not been damaged past your hit point maximum, for me, that would be -10. So if I am absolutely full and I take 20 points of damage, that knocks me down all the way to -10. If you reach your hit point maximum in the negative, you are dead. Rip your character sheet up, unless there's some resurrection going on, but for all intents and purposes, you're done. You cannot be woken up. But say I'm at 10 and I get hit for 10. I drop to 0. This is an unconscious state. Then, when it is my turn, I will grab a d20, and that's where these death saves come into play. We'll roll it. If we score a 10, all the way to 20, that is a save. Now a 12 is a success. Now if we had rolled a 1, that counts as a critical failure. That is 2 ticks on the failure. Once you reach your 3rd, that is essentially reaching your negative hit point total and dying. 3 failures in your death saves is it. Now if you roll a 20, let's flip that over to the 20, you no longer roll, and you get 1 hit point back. You actually wake up, which is different than succeeding on 3 death successes. So you're rolling along, you get, let's say you get your success here. That's a 10, that's a success. That was, let's just say that's a 17 success. Rolling the 2s, I'd be dead. 10 success. This means you are stable. That means you no longer have to make death saves, but you're not up and about. You are not conscious yet. But that means that your party can do healing. They can feed you a healing potion. They can get you back on your feet, and you don't have to worry about bleeding out. But 3 failures in the death save is absolute death. Negative hit points is absolute death. Now, if you were a spellcaster, you would move on to this page in your character sheet where you would choose your cantrips from the list and your first level spells from your list. Go back in the playlist and take a look at the spellcasters that fit you so you can see what spells you have to choose from. But as a monk, our spell save DC is an 8 plus our wisdom modifier plus our proficiency bonus. So that's 8 plus 5 to get 13. Spellcasting ability I put as wisdom, so we know that's a 3, and whenever we level up our wisdom stat, this will actually change our spellcasting ability, and that will remind us to do the spell save DC. Basically, when we cast a spell on it, and you know, monks usually don't have spells, they have like attacks in which a creature must save. So if a creature rolls and say they have a +1 modifier to the attack, that would only be a 3. Versus our 13 spell save DC, they fail, and then that attack or status would be inflicted on them. If they had rolled higher than a 13, then they deflect that attack. But it's certainly not as involved as a spell caster in which you have to keep track of spells on each individual level. So the monk isn't too awful bad when it comes to just jumping in and going. But for all intents and purposes, that is our level 1 character done, with reminder cards to say what our perks are, cards to say what our weapons are, what is in our pack, and then we actually have our cards over here that says our martial arts skill and our bonuses through the 4th level here. So when we reach 2nd level, we can see what that does for us. We also unlock our key points starting at 2nd level, in which that is where the monk really starts to open up and harness what makes their class special. But essentially the process is the same for every class, every race, every background. Definitely keep track of what you get from your background, separate from what you get from your race, and then when you roll your stats, add that in, keeping track of what proficiencies you get from your background and what proficiencies you might get from your race, and then the proficiencies you get from your class. And you know, once you do it 2 or 3 times, it becomes second nature. So I hope you learned something today. I hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know. But that will do it for me. Like, share, and subscribe if you are so bold. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next D&D 5e for Absolute Beginners video. Take care.